Now, this is one of the interviews that we're doing today that we do from time to time, which looks at people trying to make a difference in our different communities, and also having ideas about how our communities should develop. And Adam Wilson is a project manager for Social Action for Health. And Social Action for Health as a social enterprise does work with the community in trying to improve that community's health, particularly in Hackney, but other areas as well. Now, one of the big problems that they face, and we're facing in the Western world, in fact, is the problem of obesity and what's sometimes called the obesogenic environment, which actually helps and fosters that problem of obesity. And Social Action for Health has been doing a lot to actually address that problem and deal with it. So what I wanted to ask you first, Adam, is if you could tell us about first what Social Action for Health is and what you actually do.
So Social Action for Health, we're a charity that have been set up since 1987, so some 30 years now. And we are a charity that have a range of community-based projects to enable people to improve their health outcomes, as well as to help tackle social inequalities and poverty alleviation. So we've got some really good projects, such as the Maternity Engagement Project, helping with pregnant women to find services in the community. We have a Patient Leaders Programme to help people find health and social leader programs within the local community, as well as exercise programs, and a project that I'm involved with called Does Hackney Make You Fat? So there's quite a wide range of community-based programs, all geared towards improving people's health outcomes in socially deprived communities in East London.
Okay, so we'll talk about some of those programs in a minute, but clearly one of the biggest problems that people face, that I mentioned earlier, is the problem of obesity, which is impacting on people's individual health. It's also impacting on our health services in terms of cost and so on. I mean, how much of a problem is obesity in Hackney?
I think if you look at the obesogenic environment, so obesogenic refers to the social, environmental and lifestyle factors that impact upon obesity. So in Hackney alone, it's estimated that there's a recent statistic that 41% of the local community are actually clinically obese. So this is quite a wide figure, and there are a number of reasons why. Some of the barriers that people face are social deprivation. Now, in Hackney, it's a very diverse community. There's a lot of unemployment, poor education, there's issues with addiction, there's poor mental health, and ultimately that has a bearing on people's food choices, particularly in times of austerity, when people can't particularly afford healthy choices, and we're being bombarded by healthy takeaway shops. So although healthy food is available, it is not necessarily affordable to a lot of people, and take into account that Hackney is also a very diverse community, in that you have a large Turkish, Vietnamese, Bangladeshi, Indian communities. These particular communities have specific diets which they follow, which tend to be quite energy dense and quite calorific as well, which can impact on people's waistlines. So I think obesity is a wide problem, particularly if you look at childhood obesity as well, which is estimated that Hackney has the worst childhood obesity statistic in the whole of London, which is just under 50%, 50. So that's pretty staggering.
Okay, so, it is a problem, and you've explained to us what the obesogenic environment is, which is a strange term, and I'm sure you don't use that term too much locally, but we understand what you mean. And you've got a program called, Hackney Makes Us Fat. Can you tell us why you chose that name? Because it's a strange name to use, and what it actually means and what you do.
Okay, so Does Hackney Make You Fat is our project title, and this is deliberately meant to be provocative, to invoke questions and to help us to explore further, well, does the local area around us have any bearing upon making it counterintuitive to maintain a healthy weight? So the purpose of our project is to recruit volunteers who are known as activists. So these activists are people that live or work within the local area who self-identify as being overweight, who have a personal journey of maintaining a healthy weight. So as part of this project, we're looking to challenge how we think about obesity within the borough. So this could be, for example, air pollution, persuading people from being physically active. It could be the food prices being too expensive. It could be gym memberships being too expensive. It could be the fact that people lead incredibly stressful lifestyles and work long hours, which impacts upon their leisure activities. It could be the way that food is arranged in shops. It could be issues of our culture, making it not conducive to adhere to specific exercise or nutrition guidelines. So it's very much focusing on the barriers that people face to maintaining a healthy weight. And the idea is to A, tackle social stigma and discrimination, and B, it's really to empower local residents to improve their health outcomes and look for the solutions to their own problems.
Okay, so I mean, there are two problems. One is the environmental problem, the fact that, you know, they're fast food shops and maybe not enough places to exercise. The other problem is, how do you get individuals to address it? So first of all, how do you address those environmental problems? I mean, do you work with food shops, for example, and try to get them to behave differently? Do you pressure the council about spaces to exercise? Do you tackle those environmental problems first?
So we're very much in the process of tackling those environmental problems. We recently launched a couple of park events for our summer campaign. So we went into London Fields and Clissold Park. These parks specifically we went into because we actually did some research. We went into each park, spent an hour in there, and we found that after spending an hour in each park, we found that 6% of the entire demographic of park users were overweight or obese. So let me put that in perspective. Hackney has around 280 hectares of parks, green space, open land, which people can use. But the research that we've done has found there's pretty much a barrier in terms of people accessing that. So in terms of working with the council, it could be one of the things we're going to be looking at the moment is how we can make our open spaces and parks more accessible to overweight and obese people to use. Some of the barriers that people faced were issues of social stigma, discrimination, fear of using the park, local parks in front of people who are fit and healthy. We found that the outdoor gyms were quite advanced and were quite difficult in terms of people to use. So, I mean, some of the solutions that we might be looking to come up with are, well, it could be, for example, exercise classes that are run for overweight people by overweight people. Our campaign strapline is those who know firsthand, campaigning to make Hackney a healthier place. So it's very much trying to look at what's out there to sort of finding other solutions to the problem.
And can you do anything as well to address the problem of the fast food industry, which is not just fast, it's cheap, and that's why people go there. And that is a major problem that I think people are recognizing now. Is there anything you can do to address that at all in the work that you do?
It's a good question. If you talk about the increasing fast food shops in the borough, now there are chicken and chip shops available where food is particularly of poor nutritional quality. Of what we found from our research as well, we went to different parts of the borough and actually counted the number of takeaway shops available. And this was deliberate to see if there was a lack of choice and indeed if we're actually being bombarded by too many takeaway shops. In Hackney Central's Mare Street, we found 13 takeaway shops alone. In Stoke Newington Road, Stoke Newington, similar figures. We found 9 takeaway shops within pretty much a 500-metre radius. And in Kingsland Road as well, there was something in the region of 15, 16 takeaway shops. So pretty much the odds are stacked against us in terms of people maintaining a healthy weight when there's so much fast food available. Now, you can argue that healthy food is available, but if you have a family of four to feed, if you're feeling the pinch in terms of austerity, poverty, you're more likely to choose something that's energy dense, calorific, which is detrimental to your health if it's high fat, high salt, high sugar, rather than, say, an egg Benedict sourdough baguette, which might be, say, £8 or £9. So in terms of how do we address that, I've already met with one of our funders from Hackney Council, who we're working in partnership with to try and address the problem. And something that I'd be looking to try and implement, if there's any way we can put a block on the number of fast food takeaway shops that are going out there. If we can, say, have a ban on takeaway shops being within, say, 100 or 200 metre radius of schools, so therefore it doesn't prey on vulnerable people, and ultimately helpfully help us to choose healthier options rather than going for these palatable, energy dense, inexpensive options.
Okay, so I mean, you try to address the environment in that way, which is really, really important. But how do you sort of work with people to make them realise that it's also an individual responsibility, that they can do something about it?
You're absolutely right. People can take responsibility. I mean, the premise of our project is looking at the barriers that people face and ultimately help come into their own solutions to tackle those barriers. So, for example, some of our volunteers are activists who are part of the programme, who will be leading and developing their own campaigns, have helped me with park research. They've had a number of personal issues such as mental health, which has impacted upon the food choices that they purchase, in terms of if someone is very stressed, if someone is depressed, if someone's feeling suicidal, they're going to go for poor food choices. In terms of people finding gyms useful to access, some people have found that difficult as well. So in terms of sort of looking for alternative ways, it could be peer support, working with others to help, very much for motivation, really. One of the activists that we found actually was referred onto a gym program, and the challenge that he faced was being left to his own devices. Now, once he actually found people in a similar position to him, an exercise buddy, someone who could mentor him, he was able to lose 7 stone of weight within the period of about 8 months. So it's very much focusing on peer support, rather than trying to use specific messages from the government, such as calories in versus calories out, or you need to exercise, in order to sort of come up with those methods to lose weight once they're mentally ready to do so. And it's about developing those coping resources as well, in order to get to a healthy weight.
I mean, that's quite interesting because, changing people's attitudes, peer support seems to be the most effective way of doing it. And is that what the champions do? They provide peer support, or what else do they do?
So the activists who are volunteers on this program, they share ideas and expertise through activist development workshops. So through these workshops, they share their personal journey. They learn about what we referred to earlier, the obesogenic environment, where they look at factors in the environment of Hackney which make it difficult to maintain a healthy weight, whether that's fast food shops, air pollution, whether that's finding parks that are detrimental for them to use because they fear social stigma and discrimination. And turning that on its head, it's looking at, through these activist development workshops, we also offer something called asset mapping. So asset mapping is very much used as a benchmark to find people, knowledge, resources within the local community that can help them to maintain a healthy weight. And that can be used, we've used that at the beginning, and we use that at midpoint and at the end of the project as well, as a way of monitoring those changing attitudes and behaviours. As an activist, they will be given the tools to lead and develop their own campaigns as well. So this is very much the role of an activist.
Do you also do things about nutrition? Do you help people, for example, with food and cooking, and do you develop the idea of food co-ops or sharing and so on? Do you tackle the obesity issue in terms of food as well?
The answer to the question is yes and no, because this is very much not a weight loss program. So let me be clear on what this is. It's very much working with activists to help develop the tools to tackle their own problems. It is not giving someone a nutritionist, a dietitian, a gym program. It's very much working together through peer support, so they can say, well, what's out there that's obesogenic? What are the barriers that they face? So, for example, the local parks. In terms of nutrition as well, we've looked at the number of takeaway shops, which I've mentioned to you. Another part of our research, which is going to lead one of our upcoming campaigns, is the unaffordability, if that's a word, of food prices. So looking at, we've gone to Wells Street Market, Broadway Market, Stoke Newington Road, Stoke Newington Church Street, and we've actually counted various food items and prices, and what we found is that many of those items are actually £8 or more in price. So very much one of our campaigns that we're going to focus on is how we can work with the council to make food prices more affordable.
Okay, and very, very briefly, how successful do you think your campaign has been with the community? Have they accepted it?
I think we've made great strides within the last 3 months since the project went live. I started in June. When I started the project, we had little partners in the community. We actually had one activist on board then. We didn't have any branded t-shirts or a banner. The social media was still in its infancy stage. I believe that in terms of engaging with the local community, we've made big strides through we now have banners and branded t-shirts. We now have the official Facebook page for Does Hackney Make You Fat? We now have official Twitter accounts. We now have done events within the local parks. We've done community outreach at some of the local libraries.
I'm going to stop you because we're getting very, very close to 20 minutes. But I mean, it's quite clear that you're doing quite a lot here, and that's great. Let me say we're going to carry this on with a webinar later on where we work with many of the activists and talk to them as well. And we'll be able to do a much longer sort of webinar when we do that. Anyhow, Adam, thank you for taking part in this and for telling us what the background is, what you do, what the environment in which you work in is, and the success that you're having. It's a really good story. So thank you for doing that.